Support the Amigos podcast and keep the Amiga goodness flowing for just $1 a month. Visit our page at patreon.com/AmigosPodcast.
Amiga, the first personal computer that gives you a creative edge.
Amigos, the podcast about everything Amiga. Amigos is a proud member of the Throwback Network, your home for quality retro podcasts. And now, here are your hosts, Aaron Dowdy and John Bodovkar Schaller.
Hi everybody, welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And thanks for listening. Today we are going to talk about Fright Night.
Ooh.
But before we do, we got just a little bit of feedback this week. Our old friend Roland in the Caves left a comment on our Zool episode. He said, "Wow, what a crazily hyped game Zool was. I must admit that I was really looking forward to this game before it was released since it had massive coverage in the magazines over here in the UK. But I didn't really ever enjoy it playing it, unfortunately. I didn't really know the reasons for this back when I was a 13-year-old kid, but I think you guys hit the nail on the head when you alluded to the level design being a little below par. That makes perfect sense since a lot of the game seems like it should be great fun, but the levels aren't particularly enjoyable, unfortunately, especially level 1. Also, Zool isn't really that much fun to control, and he's quite awkward. The bullet things he shoots are not very satisfying, and overall, I struggled to see why this game received such high ratings when it was released."
Yeah, I think everything he said, he nailed it. You know, also, he's not an ant. There's that. I think that brought it down a little bit in my eyes. But, yeah, the bullets aren't satisfying, and they do little help a lot of times. I always said work on spikes. You'd be laughing.
So that's our only feedback this week. This week we got a lot to talk about with Fright Night, so we're not going to do a hardware segment. But Aaron, what can you tell us about Fright Night?
Well, I figured before we got into the game Fright Night, it would behoove us to delve into the actual film a bit. This isn't a film review show, but today it's sort of a little bit of a film review show because we're going to talk about Fright Night a little bit. Fright Night was an American film released in 1988. It was written and directed by a fellow named Tom Holland. It cost, I believe I read that it cost a little around $3 million to make. It was a pretty cheap film to make, but it brought in a total of $24 million approximately. So it was a real big sleeper hit. It came out of nowhere and did real well for the studio that year. The movie was very fortunate in that they received the special effects team that had just came off Ghostbusters.
Oh.
And so those guys came into this project, they saw the budget, they did the best they could, and the movie is well known for having excellent special effects. And they hold up pretty well. There's a lot of cool vampire makeup. There's an awesome scene where this chick's jaw dislocates. She's got these huge, enormous fangs and a million teeth. It's a very memorable scene. The game is based on the film to a certain degree. It shares the same characters. In the movie, the vampire is a fellow named Jerry Dandridge. He was played by Chris Sarandon. Chris Sarandon was also, I'd say, probably his most famous role was the king in Princess Bride. If you recall that particular.
Any relation to Susan?
I don't know. I don't. That's a good question. I don't know. He was the main vampire. He was really the only vampire in that, at least until towards the end. The main character in it was a fellow named Charlie Brewster. He was played by a guy named William Ragsdale. He was in the sequel as well. He was also in a show that was pretty popular when Fox Network first started, called Herman's Head. I don't know if you've ever heard of this show.
You know, I do seem to recall that show.
I believe that it gave people in his brain as a character, and they sort of like it. What it reminded me of, if you've ever seen Everything You Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask, the sex scene at the end where it's got all the guys working the body parts, and it's sort of like that.
Or more family-friendly, the new Pixar movie, Inside Out.
Which I haven't seen.
Yeah, but it's the same concept.
The fearless vampire killer in the movie, also in the game, Peter Vincent, played by the great Roddy McDowall. One of my favorite actors. Awesome. He's been in tons of stuff. All the Planet of the Apes, series. He was in Hell House. He was in he's been in tons of stuff. I believe he was president of the Screen Actors Guild for a long time too. The girlfriend in the movie, also in the game, her name is Amy Peterson. She was played by Amanda Bierce. She's most famous for being Marcy in Married with Children. If you ever watched that old Fox show,
yeah,
she was Steve's wife, and she made headlines. She was one of the first kind of pretty big stars to come out of the closet a while back. I guess that was sort of a big deal. The cult favorite in the movie was a fella named Ed Thompson, Evil Ed. He was played by Stephen Jeffries. He is known for having the big tagline in this "You're so cool, Brewster." If you ever watched the movie, he went on to do a film called 976 Evil, which is sort of a cult horror film. He did a lot of for some reason, which I was baffled when I looked this up. He did a lot of male porn. I don't know, but I mean, he seemed like he was a pretty good actor, and he seemed like he was fairly in demand. One of the bit players in the movie was this prostitute named Judy, and she's in the game, which I thought was strange. I looked at her name and I was like, "Who is this?" And I had to go back and look. She was played by a chick named Dorothy Fielding. I don't know what else she's ever done, and her part in the movie, I bet she's not in the movie for more than on screen for more than 3 or 4 minutes. She's in the game. Excuse me, I lied. That is Judy Brewster is his mom. She's in the movie for about 3 or 4 minutes, and again, I don't know what else she's done. The prostitute was a chick named Heidi Sorensen, and she was the prostitute. Again, neither one of these characters were in the movie for more than a cup of coffee, but they both make the game for whatever reason. The premise of the movie was basically the Brewster character looks out his window and sees a vampire, or sees guys moving a coffin into a next door neighbor's house, and he eventually sees a vampire take the hooker and basically drain her and kill her. And he looks out the window and sees this. He freaks out, and the only person he could turn to is the guy that hosts the late night horror show, who's the fearless vampire killer, played by Roddy McDowell, to go get advice on how to get rid of this vampire. And that's basically the purpose of the movie. Or they're trying to prove that this guy's a vampire, and they're trying to get rid of him, and no one believes him because, it is what it is. Now, it's a great flick. I'm not going to give away the whole thing, but it's vastly different than the game. The movie takes place from the viewpoint of the hero, not the vampire. The game is a whole other ball of wax. Obviously, you're looking at playing Jerry, the vampire, and if you've played the game, the premise is pretty simple. You're in Jerry's house, a luxurious mansion. In the film, it was not decorated as it is in the game. We'll get into that in a moment. And in the game, you're going around and you're trying to bite and kill and feed off of all the good guys from the movie. If you consider the hooker a good guy, sure, why not her too? You go all through your mansion. You bite all these people. You get back to your coffin before the sun rises, and then you advance to day 2. Effectively, that's the game. I thought the graphics for the mansion, I thought it was very well fleshed out. Didn't you think so? The way it looked.
When I first started playing this game, I got really excited.
Yes.
Because first of all, I love games where you are exploring a house, like Maniac Mansion,
right?
Luigi's Mansion. I don't know if you played that on the GameCube, but it's very cool to go into different rooms and see how they're laid out. And I was hoping that there would be secrets in each room or items to collect, because you see, things on tables, but I soon realized that was not the case.
It makes me sad, and I'll tell you why. The mansion is so well done. It's vast, and I mean it's not as vast as like Addams Family. But I mean, the graphical detail is very nice. The character detail is nice. I mean, they look good. Why I should think about them. The opening is awesome. Where it says it's got the Fright Night logo, and it's got Jerry going, "Welcome to Fright Night," and the music kicks in. The music's awesome. You really think you're in for a treat. But when you boil it down, they took this beautiful graphics work and just didn't do that much with it. Now, let's not skip ahead. Let's talk about probably why. This was a budget title. The outfit that released it was a crew called Micro Deal. So that right there gives away.
If deal is in your company name.
Yes. What do you got on Micro Deal?
Probably not as much as you do. Tell me about it.
Well, again, they were a budget title manufacturer. I looked over what they'd done. I had actually played some of this stuff for once. Although my favorite game with a bunch of I've never played, but I've got to. It's called Insanity Fight. That sounds outstanding. They did a couple movies. They did the Karate Kid Part 2, which I love that movie too, but I don't ever remember playing the game. They did a game called Major Motion. Now that I'd played quite a bit. It's and maybe we'll cover this when we do our Clones show, but Major Motion is Spy Hunter.
Oh, okay.
But it's outstanding. I really remember. I haven't played this for quite a while, but it was a cool game. I mean, it even had the button to call the truck, which you don't see that often. It was good. It was good. You used the keyboard to use the different weapons you picked up from the truck. If you've played Spy Hunter, I'm not gonna go into that, but it was good. It was a very good version.
Yeah, Pete Lyon, who did the graphics, he worked on Karate Kid Part 2. He also did The Godfather, which I don't know if you've ever played The Godfather.
I saw that, and I have not.
But it looked great from the screenshots.
I'd say this guy's a good hand.
Yeah,
you know? Something that got me excited, and I have to say this was sort of a revelation, was they made a game called Time Bandit. Now, when I first saw that, I was like, nah, it can't be. And then I looked, and sure enough, this is a port of a Coco game that I played from an outfit called, I think it was called Mitch Tech, was what they were called on the Coco. And it was a Tutankhamun sort of a game, kind of an homage to Tutankhamun. But it was really a complicated game, especially for the size of it. I think it was like a 32K game. It was extremely low end. But apparently I never knew anything had been ported from. Can you imagine a port from the Coco to the Amiga? It's amazing.
Yeah, there can't be too many titles that hold that claim.
And I looked at Time Bandit, and when I looked at the graphics, I was like, well, this looks pretty good. It looked a lot better than the Coco, obviously, and I was like, but it looks similar, and sure enough, and apparently and they made an ST version as well, and apparently they shifted more toward a gauntlet-y type gameplay. So I'm definitely going to put it on my list, but I thought that was kind of a neat thing. So these guys at least made a couple, and some of these might be great. I'm not familiar with most of them, but those are the two that stuck out well, Amiga Soccer I've also played, but again, we know about my knowledge of soccer. So they put out some decent stuff, budget title wise. I'm sure it was hits and misses.
Now, are you aware of the box variations of Fright Night?
Tell me about them.
So there's two box variations. One has the standard Fright Night name and logo, and then there's a second version that looks the same except it's subtitled The Arcade Game.
Wow, that may be stretching it a bit.
The latter prominently features Columbia Pictures and Microdeal's logos on the box, and it also had the tagline, get ready for this, if you love being scared, it'll be the game of your life.
Wow. What a...
Now, this is how this game really put the deal into Microdeal, because instead of paying for stickers to print the name of the game on the discs, the title of the game was stamped directly onto the disc itself.
Yeah, I've got a few of those where they cheaped out on the label. Now, to be fair, that's actually, I always like that, because sometimes those labels would peel off, and boy, getting those out of a drive is a real pain.
That's true.
So, but I mean, I'm sure it was cheapery was in play. I kept hearing about an Atari ST version of this. I did some digging, which guess what? There's not a lot on that. But as far as I can tell, and I went to live in Amiga, a couple other places, and looked at some conversations, the Atari ST port was never released and or completed. Did you hear anything about a port?
No.
So, for all intents and purposes, this is it. This is the only version that was available. Another odd thing is this game came out in '88. The movie came out in '85. That's a pretty it's a pretty large gap.
If you're looking to cash in on a license, 3 years is too long.
The sequel came out in '88, so presumably that's what they were banking on. The sad thing is, which I really like Fright Night 2, the movie. It was not as popular, but for a bunch of reasons. It was weird stuff happened. It's funny how this stuff would tie into the game, because I don't know if this would have affected the sales, but presumably they would have released this the same year to capitalize on the new movie since the first one was a hit. Fright Night 2 was to be released at a certain time, and you may remember this, but there was one of the heads of the studio that had just put out Fright Night 2 was getting ready to put it in the theaters, and was actually in talks to make a third one, was owned by a guy named Melendez. And him and his wife were murdered by their sons. It was the Melendez killings.
Oh,
do you remember that?
Oh yeah, totally.
And so that's what effectively, no pun intended, killed the third film, which probably would have been made, and it ended up getting this film pushed back and released very limitedly. It was in very few theaters. It only made $3 or $4 million, but it was a very limited release.
Wow.
And so a lot of people haven't seen Fright Night 2. So if these guys were banking on using that as a springboard to make money off this game here, that was a fail. And then of course the game didn't help, I'm sure.
Yeah.
but an interesting trivial tidbit that goes back. But yeah, the Melendez killings involved in this to a certain degree in this game.
Well, I can tell you this: the coder, Steve Back is his name. He claimed in a 1989 interview that it would be his last game for the company. So if there were to be a Fright Night 2, he would not have coded it. However, even though he said that, let me just mention that all of this information, the best site that I could find for this was not Lemon Amiga or Moby Games or someplace like that. It was actually the Fright Night Wikia page. You know how there's all these little wikis that have...
Fright Night game has a wiki page?
Well, no, it's the Fright Night Wikia, which is like the Wikipedia that can be on any subject.
Yeah.
And on the Fright Night page, there's a subset for the Fright Night game.
Digging deep.
Yeah,
digging real deep.
But that's where I found a lot of this information, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. But the page says perhaps it was due to overwork that an ending wasn't created. So I guess if you made it all the way through all 7 nights, it just flips back.
I can tell you, spoiler alert on my score, I didn't make it through all 7 nights.
I did not either.
That much said, I went and watched a dude on YouTube who made it past the 7th night, and guess what? I was not surprised in the least when it just started over. So, yeah, I can confirm that's exactly what happens. And by the 7th night, you've probably had enough of Fright Night anyway.
Yeah. You know what this game reminds me of? Kind of a more modern game, the way that the nights work and the survival thing works. Have you heard of Five Nights at Freddy's?
I'm not.
Okay, so if you are a middle school teacher like I am, you will hear about Five Nights at Freddy's all the time. In Five Nights at Freddy's, you play kind of a night custodian at something like here in West Virginia we have Billy Bob's Pizza Wonderland.
Yeah.
But you basically at night the animatronic animals come alive, and you have to watch these series of surveillance cameras. And you're flipping back and forth, and they'll move around, but as long as you're watching them, they won't move. And they will creep up behind you, and the game is basically works on jump scares. So, you look up, and they're right there, and they kill you. And but you have to make it through 5 nights of that. And so that really reminded me of this game, because you got to make it through all 7 nights without dying. I can't believe you haven't heard of Five Nights at Freddy's.
I have not.
I know your love of the animatronic band.
I will say this, just because we can brag about it. We happen to live near one of, at last I checked, it was one of only 2 of the Rockafire Explosion animatronic bands still in existence in America, and I don't know about the world, but I mean, I'd wager maybe in the world. We have a was it a Billy Bob's down here, and they have the Rockafire Explosion, and they have recently upgraded them.
Oh.
So, and they still put new tunes and stuff in them. So we're lucky there. I grew up with those guys. I always thought they were kind of neat. So the thought of those guys attacking me is very disturbing.
But that's exactly what that game is. If you can imagine the Rockafire Explosion slowly creeping to your doom.
This game actually reminded me of another Amiga game in a looser way, because it had those big characters, which were and well flushed out, the beautiful backgrounds. There's a game I've mentioned on this show before called Sword of Sodan. It's a game where you run back and forth and you jump, and you know how that jump, kind of a weird halted jump that he does, the same thing. Now Sword of Sodan, the gameplay is way better, but this has the graphics. This is so nice, and the characters are so large. And if you've seen the movie, they did a good job capturing the look of the characters. Like Peter Vincent looks like Peter Vincent. He's got his vampire killer outfit on. Now, here's something else that's sort of sad, is that as you're going around picking these guys off, in case we didn't go into the premise of this game, you're the vampire. You wake up, you walk through your mansion, and anytime you come across someone there, you bite them. Now, as you come up to them, they'll be throwing stuff at you. I saw crosses and
daggers,
little stuff, but it didn't do a ton of. I don't know. There's no way to avoid it. I couldn't find a. I mean, you just eat it.
Yeah.
No pun intended. And then you feed on these people, and then they literally get beamed up. That's what it looks like. They just disappear. They fade away, and then you get more rejuvenated, and then you go to the next room. You have to get all these people and get back to your coffin before the sun rises. That's the game. Well, it's a poor service to poor Peter Vincent, the vampire killer, and all of his buddies. They have no defense, basically. Well, I mean, their little pathetic attempts to stop you, they don't do anything. So if you want to feel like an overpowered killer, you're in business.
Yeah, the thing that does the most damage to you are the ghostly apparitions.
The ghosts and the hands.
Yeah, which are technically also ghosts.
And I always thought it was odd that the one ghost had a knife. What's the... Jeez, talk about overkill. You know, that's a grizzly bear with a chainsaw. Once you get past the first level, every level after that, you get additional. Well, not really. You don't. You get the same things over and over, but more. Mm-hmm. And one thing is a hand, which this doesn't make any sense either. You're a vampire. What are ghosts doing? Why are you?
Why are they interested?
And who are these hands? How are they under your third floor? What's going on? What kind of mansion is this? And there's a lot of boobs in this game.
There are anatomically correct.
Yeah, these ghosts are stacked. You know, they are stacked women, and so I mean, I guess maybe sometimes you just want to let yourself go, but you have to avoid them, and it's funny for a vampire, you really have no attacks. You can't bite the ghosts. You can't bite the hands that try to get you. And so basically you just cunningly dodge them as long as you can. That's it. That's the game. And you do this over and over. And every level, quicker ghosts will come out. Did you see anything aside from ghosts and hands?
That's it.
And
the projectiles that are thrown by the guys.
Yeah. And so what a waste, you know? And the beautiful graphics, like I said, the guy that did the graphics, I think he did some pretty nice stuff in his career.
Alien Breed 2, that's another one that he did.
That's a really attractive game, and the music was good. Mm-hmm. And I saw that guy, he had done a ton of stuff. Oh, this fellow, I'm gonna find his name here.
David Whitaker.
Yeah, that's it. And amongst the things that I picked out that I saw that he'd done was, I think it said he did Shadow of the Beast. Hell of a soundtrack there. He had also done a first-person pinball. I thought that was kind of amusing.
That's that jazzy tune.
Yeah, it's jazzy, all right. Probably he doesn't talk too much about that. I would wager he doesn't go into that too much. But so, I mean, and the music he did for the game is good. Oh, he also did Lemmings Tribe, and another one of my favorites, Xenon 2 Mega Blast. Ooh, but Boom the Bass. That's an awesome song on that. I'm assuming he did the main song. There's really only one song in the game, and it's an awesome song. So, you know, you had talent, you know, but I mean, a budget title, I'm guessing they just... And also, since the movie's been out for so long, maybe just said, listen, this is going to be a dud. Mm-hmm. Let's just put the bare minimum of a game down. It's sad. It actually made me sad because I was excited to play this, and I'd never played it in the past. And in all honesty, the basically, long story short, if you don't make it back to your coffin before the sun comes up, there's a little moon that's on the bottom of the screen, and eventually it goes away, and then that's the sun up, you're dead. If you get hit by anything you get killed. That's pretty much, that's the game. Now, there's not much else to say aside from that. But the tune's good. It's funny when I first loaded the game up, and it goes, "Welcome to Fright Night," and that music kicked in. Luke, my son, was in the room. It scared the crap out of him, and he looked up on the screen. And he was like, "What is that?" I told him, I said, "I don't know, Luke. I didn't load it." Oh my gosh, he ran out of the room screaming, man. I looked up a few of the reviews. Did you catch any reviews?
It did not review particularly well.
Yeah, courtesy Lemon Amiga. It looks like the Amiga format, which is the book I read, gave it 88%. They must have been, hey, I don't know what to tell you. The Amiga Resource gave it 18 out of 25. They were pretty kind to it.
Yeah, those are pretty generous scores.
Yeah. I looked it up on eBay to see if you should happen to want a copy. There was only one fella selling one right now, German. He was asking 156 American dollars or best offer. So if you're and the thing is, the box looks cool looking because it's got the poster art. You know,
it'd be something cool to put on your wall.
It'd be nice. Like I mentioned this in the last show. I just went to a horror festival, and they reunited the cast of Fright Night, and it was real interesting to hear him talk. Tell stories about Roddy McDowall and stuff. So if you went to something like that, I guess these guys tour around sometimes to do stuff. You could always it would have been awesome. I wish I'd done this. Now that here I am, but it'd be cool to have him sign the game. Mm-hmm. Something like that would have been fun. But I can't think of any reason to go out and out of your way to try to. I'd say this is the worst game gameplay wise. Well, this is, I don't know, first person pinball and wrestling.
Yeah. We've done a lot of terrible games. We need to do more. Better games.
It's so more better. It's a beautiful game though. It's a shame that they just wasted it.
Yeah, this is definitely the best looking, worst playing game.
It is. It's much like wrestling. It was a good concept that they dropped the ball on. And I'll be honest with you, I would rather have played as the good guys. To be completely honest with you, because don't get me wrong, the bad guy's an interesting character. This doesn't have the heart of the film. It doesn't have the humor, So it did not do well by the film. So which is probably why we never heard of it anywhere else, and we never saw it go anywhere else after this. Mm-hmm. So, but if you feel like paying $156 for this German fellow, go for it. And I looked in the back, and as of say August, these were going. When you could find them for, $25-$30 US. So that's probably still, considering this was a $20 title when it was released, amazingly, of all the games we've read, this one's gone up in price.
Well, technically it has, but $20 in 1989 is not the same as $20 now.
That's a good point, Boat. Now, all that said, how did you do?
I scored 3,225 points.
Did you get off Monday?
Because I played it one time, and I said, boy, life's too short.
I played it more than any man should. And I'll tell you, I just sat there with my kid and played it over and over because he thought it was funny.
Okay.
It is funny.
It is funny.
I got to Wednesday. I scored 12,325 points.
Congratulations!
I was proud of myself and my efforts there. So, in conclusion, I ain't for it. I'm against it, as they say. Oh, hey, it will run on the OCS. So, if you've got an old Amiga, you can plop this right in and go for it.
So, thumbs down from the Amigos on Fright Night. But next week, hopefully, our next Halloween-themed adventure will be better. Aaron, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're going to do next week? Well,
as our Halloween spooktacular, you get that? I thought it'd be fun to go and pick out the all-time scary queen, which is Elvira. Elvira was a weirdly big deal in the States for about 5 years or so. and her name is synonymous with pretty good stuff. She's been in a couple really good pinball machines.
That's true.
She's been in an amusing movie, and she had 3 big Amiga games. And so we're going to do sort of an Elvira spectacular. We're going to do little mini reviews of the 3 games, and maybe a little synopsis of Elvira. Which is, speaking of which, there's one more little tidbit about Fright Night. In the sequel, there's a vampire woman that's in it, and original drafts of the script look like they were written for Elvira to take the role. So
That
there's
would
your
have been
tie-in.
at her heyday, you know, the late 80s,
It
early
would have
90s.
been. It would have been in her heyday. I suspect that if she'd read, well, I don't know. I take that back. I was going to say if she'd read the script, she might change her mind, but she saw a lot of bad movies in her time.
Yeah.
And
Something tells me the money might have been the
I'd say
the
you're
factor.
Wait, when you can't afford Elvira, well, I don't know. I don't know what she was asking.
She was
back
probably
then.
commanded some pretty serious cash.
Did
in
you
her
ever see
heyday.
her film?
No.
You should. You should watch that. It's been a long time since I watched it, but it was. Hey, Elvira was a good-looking girl.
Yeah.
And she was funny too. So we're gonna do an Elvira show next week. What the hell? And we'll throw those out there and see. I'm sure that I've always heard those games were well received. And I haven't played them. I played the first one years ago and haven't played any since. So it should be interesting to go back down that road and see what we think.
All right. Well, until next time.
Adios.
Adios.